Hi everyone, and welcome back to a new City Skyline series. This is, or rather will be, the city of Aurelia. In the first episode, I'm going to be introducing the city and talking about the future plans, and meanwhile, in the background you can see the main highway connections around the map being built, which all converge roughly to the center of the map, near the river, where a huge super interchange is going to be built. I'll get to it later in the video. So, Aurelia, what's it going to be like? We could have seen a little glimpse of some places in the intro. Yes, I started building the city some time ago, so the first episodes here are going to be kind of catching up to the city's current state. I chose a futuristic theme. First, I wanted to go for a bit more dystopian futuristic feel, which I kind of used when building around the main highway interchange, which you will see later. So, a lot of tall buildings, really close to each other, with very little public space left on the ground. But then I decided I'm not really going to follow that absolutely everywhere, and I want to add some places which might even have some clean, urban, utopia futuristic theme. Still keeping to the super high density construction, even residential, although with a bit more focus on walkability, public transport options, and quality public space in general. Now, obviously, this is highly subjective. Someone living in a countryside will probably always take big urban areas for dystopian, toxic, ugly-looking places to live in. So I guess that this is just my personal notion about the place that I already started building, and I leave it up to you to decide what kind of vibe are you getting from all this. So why choose a futuristic theme in the first place? I definitely feel that it gives you a lot more options, opens up a lot of new opportunities to try all kinds of crazy designs when it comes to all aspects of urban development, from infrastructure to housing. Also, I just really wanted to have an excuse to start doing designs that are going to be maybe a bit over-engineered, complicated, yet hopefully nice looking with details and all that. Now, what about realism in this city? From an engineering point of view, I definitely want to keep it realistic. So for example, railroads I want to do, like I explained in the railroad guide, and as well as roads, trams and all that. But since we are in the future, some positions of buildings might not be exactly like we are used to seeing, so maybe from time to time you will hear me say something like, hey, it's the future. From gameplay's point of view, I definitely don't want this to be just a static model. So the city is going to work, gonna provide citizens with all the services and jobs and the commerce with goods from some industrial districts. Definitely want to have very good traffic as well. I will be clipping some buildings together to create custom high density blocks, and if I can't do it otherwise, I will use the procedural objects mod to convert some buildings into just non-functional decorations, which I will have more control over to place them where I need. Well, to be perfectly honest, I actually became a bit addicted to the procedural objects mod because it's just so powerful and absolutely awesome. When it comes to detailing, I think I'll continue the trend from the previous city. I usually pick like a place, maybe a plaza before an important building, some nice residential estate or like a public transport stop, and detail it, while not really detailing the rest of the city that much or not at all. So there will definitely be some filler areas. People will be traveling around the city mostly by using an extensive public transport network. I want to make great use of trams. I picked a very nice looking real-life futuristic tram concept vehicle, you could have seen it in the opening shots, for the city, and I'll treat it, apart from like a regular surface tram, as a light rail and even as a metro. The backbone of the public transport is going to be a high-speed urban railroad, for which, again, I picked a really nice new vehicle from the workshop, as well as tracks. I haven't decided if I want to do monorail in the city, because the selection of workshop monorail stations is very limited, and I don't want to use the vanilla stations all the time. But maybe I'll consider the workshop's suspended monorail somewhere. There won't be any metro, as it would be hidden underground, and it would be no fun having it in the city for purely functional purposes. I'm not going to do the metro overhaul mod either. I think that the trams are going to do just fine as some underground downtown transport, and it will also allow me to do some nice custom visible stations as well. I don't have any particular goals for the city. I'll probably stop building it once my computer decides that I simply overdid it with details and FPS drops below like 5. Or the game itself tells me that I reached probably the network size limits. No population goals either, although we probably will reach some reasonable 6-digit numbers here in the end. So what is going on down here? I really missed building interchanges. On the previous map, all the major roads and railroads were done long before I finished the city itself. So I went some few months without building a proper interchange. So I really wanted to get back to it. And not just that, but go big as well. So right here we have an interchange between 3 highway directions with multiple exit and entrance points for the surface roads. Now, the interchange does omit some connections because some of these highways do meet again further down the road, and also some ground connections are carefully not created. For example, cars coming from the south are not allowed to exit to the ground level, going back to the southern direction. It feels like it doesn't make sense, and cars wanting to go there would exit the highway somewhere sooner. But overall, that's just a tiny little simplification for the interchange, as the number of connections is already great. As you could have seen, 2 of the 3 highways are going over the river. The taller bridge is done using this absolutely amazing looking cable-stayed bridge, which is actually a network, which allowed me to do a curve for this bridge and fit the cables to its curvature very easily. The lower bridge is then done straight using another incredible bridge from the workshop, which is the double bridge, 2-level bridge. On the top of it, we have the highway, and underneath it, there's the railroad, 2 tracks of the railroad. These tracks then go to Aurelia's main train station, for which I used the Berlin Hauptbahnhof building, as it really fits the style and has just enough tracks for all our needs. At the start, I really wanted to do something new for the highways, so I downloaded the expressway pack from the workshop to build more realistic highways, especially connections, more realistic than the vanilla ones. Also, I kind of wanted to change the color of the roads. I know that the pitch black roads are not very realistic, but for a more futuristic feel of the city, I feel like I really want to use that, especially when I saw the normal color for the vanilla roads. It just didn't fit. Anyway, the expressways were missing some important segments that I really needed, so I switched back to vanilla highways for a while. Then I downloaded a mod, the Road Colors Changer, to just change the color, and then I got another highway asset which I settled on using. These are the Shuto expressways, if I'm not mistaken. They are very narrow, which felt really perfect for this interchange, although they do miss a shoulder, so I'm always using an extra lane, which I'll later block for all personal and cargo traffic. But even a 3-lane is still more narrow than the vanilla 2-lane. Also, the connections are much nicer with these. You probably already noticed that this is not exactly a proper time-lapse here. I'm skipping through a lot of the construction. To be completely honest, I was lost a bit myself while editing this video, since I did a lot of changes to the ramps, and I had to jump a lot between parts of the interchange because I was just designing it on the go, so I had to build, let's say, 1 loop, then figure out how some other ramps are going to fit next to it, but in order to do that, I had to finish some different connections on the other side of the interchange, for example. Also, I already knew that there's going to be buildings inside and underneath the interchange roads, so I needed to make it a bit more suited for that. Not to mention that I just wanted to have the interchange good looking as well. I think I spent maybe 4 to 5 streams building it, so let's say 20 hours maybe, experimenting with all the ramps and stuff, rebuilding it and changing it a lot, making sure that everything works, all the connections that I need are there. So this is more like a compilation of some highlights from the construction process. I haven't used the traffic manager to do all the lane connections and restrictions just yet, because right now there's very little traffic going to and from the surface roads, and overall traffic volume is kind of low as well. So I will deal with proper rules for these roads later when we will need it. Not to even mention that some roads, if you change them, well, all the roads, if you change them, they lose all the lane connections, all the traffic restrictions, and all that. So we need to do that later, but that might actually happen quite soon because I made sure that the ground entrance and exit points are done so that cars don't need to make left turns, well, only when the traffic manager lane connections are already in place. Now, the left turns obviously kill the capacity for any kind of intersection. So I'll guess I'll revisit that when people will need to go and use the interchange to move around the city. That will probably happen after I do the industrial area of the city, which is going to be quite far away from here. So the only way to get to it is through the highways. Right now, the entire interchange is in the middle of nowhere, so the fact that it goes on multiple levels, I think at most it has 5 levels, it looks unreasonably high, especially with all the roads being elevated segments. Like I said, there's going to be buildings all around it, tall buildings especially, so the height of the roads is going to be a bit overshadowed and will blend into the area a lot better. When it comes to the building method I used here, I mostly just built the horizontal geometry first, and then picked up each individual nodes and moved them up using Move It. So sometimes I did unreasonably steep connections, which I had to change or convert into some loops maybe. One absolutely irreplaceable tool I used here was the ruler, which is just a simple prop, but in a shape of a ruler, scaled exactly to measure meters. I use that all the time these days to be more consistent with, for example, gaps between roads or some building positions, and especially clearances. Before I discovered the ruler, I always used the vanilla hot dog or donut vans because they are very tall. So I always said that we need to do the hot dog test, and then the clearances were like 4 hot dogs, for example, or something like that. But I haven't yet figured out how, if there is a way to place a vanilla van as a prop. So I always had to wait for it to arrive underneath whatever bridge I needed to test, which made it inconvenient to say the least. Not to mention that vehicles won't immediately snap to new road height if you move them up and down when the game is paused. But it doesn't matter anymore, we have the ruler. As you can see, I pretty much concentrated everything to one side of the river, with just a few ramps on the opposite side because there was just not enough space left in the main site. I will probably take a few episodes to get over the river and start some construction there. But when we do get there, I will have to make the part of the interchange there more complicated again, since I will need some exits and entrances for the ground level roads. I used a nice retaining wall network around the river, although I don't think I want to use it all along the river, since it would make the river look a bit too artificial. Not really sure yet how to continue that in different parts of the city. Also in here, doing some fine tunings to the bridges. And the last thing, getting rid of all the pillars that were built together with the roads and putting them back manually to better fit the place. I will create a mod collection for the city, but I won't do the asset collection this time. It's just too painful to do it in Steam, and I'm simply using way too many things. Names of the stuff I'm using can be mostly seen in the videos, and I'm even going to mention some throughout the series. And of course, you can ask for a particular asset's name in the comments if you want. Anyway, we are almost at the end of today's first episode. I can't really promise a regular upload schedule for these, but we'll see how it goes. Also, I will continue doing some different stuff for this channel parallel to this series as well. I hope you guys are going to like Aurelia, I definitely do. If you are new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and stay tuned for the next episodes. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.